Part 1 of my interview with Eric Leeds coming right now. And obviously, if you enjoy these interviews that I do, as well as any of the other videos that I do, don't forget to subscribe to Princess Friend and hit the little notifications bell to make sure you get our videos. We do post new stuff every week. All right, let's get into the interview. I have an amazing interview lined up for you today, guys. I have the incomparable, the magnificent Eric Leeds with me.
After you've said that, I don't know what else I should say. I should just let it go with that. So thank you, man. That's very, very kind of you to say that.
Definitely. Now, and anybody who's watched my channel before knows that usually my reviews for most Prince things go, this song is great. And then Eric Leeds comes in and he just makes it that much better.
And just screws it up entirely.
The opposite. But you know what? I can see both angles.
Yeah, well, we all had our own agenda on certain days. So.
Exactly. But we do have Celebration 2019 coming up. Are you doing anything special kind of leading up to the new big event that's coming up?
We're taking advantage of it. I'm not involved in any of the official activities this year. But the thing that I've been mostly involved with for the last several years is a group called LP Music, which is a band co-led by myself and Paul Peterson. My bandmate from our other group, F Deluxe, formerly The Family. But LP is something that we've been concentrating on, Paul and I, for several years now. It's our hardcore jazz funk band. And we recorded a CD last year, or that came out last year, that we did through Pledge Music. It was, one of the crowdfund schemes. So it has not yet been released to the public. I don't know if does this end up backwards on your screen?
No, we see it.
Okay, it's cool. Yeah, because I see it backwards anyway. But that's the CD. We're talking to some legitimate record labels in order to try to actually get it out. But we sell it on our gigs. Anyway, we're doing an LP Music gig on Friday, the 26th, which is in the midst, right in the middle of the celebration weekend. And that night, we're playing at a club in Minneapolis called the Ice House. And we're timing it so that is the evening, I believe, that they're doing one of the official events for the celebration weekend is the gig at the Minneapolis Armory downtown, where musicians are going to be playing in front of the big screen with Prince on video before that.
Right. That
gig should probably be over about 10:30. Our hit starts at 11. And the club, the Ice House that we're playing, is literally about 15 minutes from the Armory. So we're inviting everybody. We're your after party. So you'll be downtown at the Armory. As soon as you get out of that, just come up the street to Nicollet Avenue to the Ice House, and we're going to be hitting at around 11.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a great club. It's got good food too. If you want to come and get something to eat or whatever, it's a really cool hang. We played there a lot of very, very cool people play there.
Yeah, and I'll put those links in the comments.
Oh man, thank you so much.
That'll make that much easier for people to do. I actually did a video, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, about here's all the big events that are happening, and I did mention yours. So
cool.
Hopefully people are already planning on going.
We're already getting some good advanced ticket sales. So hopefully,
I've been to the Ice House, and it's a really great venue as well.
Yeah. In fact, it's several years ago, Dave Chappelle was in town, and he chose that as his venue to do like several gigs just in a small house.
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was really, 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 really cool.
That
So,
is pretty cool.
anyways,
I
yeah.
mean, you did mention that that you were part of Celebration 2018 last year. Obviously, I was there. I
Hmm.
saw the fun family interviews and stuff that you did. That was
Oh,
a lot
okay.
of fun.
Yeah.
What was it like being part of that big kind of collection of not only just the 3,000 people who came to hear you
Hmm.
play and talk, but just what was it like the whole experience last year?
I've got to be perfectly honest with you. It was a gig.
Okay.
Yeah. I rolled up for sound check. We played the gig. We did the panels. We had fun. Had a great time. Played our set. I got in the car and went home. That's pretty much it.
Are you
You know,
local to Minneapolis?
I still live here. Yeah.
Okay, that's probably
Yeah.
why. You're like, this is nothing new. I'm here all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's I truly understand for so many of the Prince fans, particularly the diehards that are coming into the celebration weeks, that for so many people to just walk into that building has a particular significance for them. I
Yeah,
get that. For me, it was a place where I used to work.
right.
And it was a world class recording facility, and to have the benefit of that kind of facility to be able to use. But I've worked in world class recording facilities in LA and New York and other places, so it beyond that, it really is, it's like I say, that was a long time ago I worked there.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it is. So it's like, oh, okay, here I'm here again. Oh well, okay, let's play. So
But that makes sense, though, what you were saying before. It's one of the things that you've done.
right, yeah,
And, Prince wasn't your first gig,
not
either.
hardly.
So
No,
can you tell
yeah.
us a little bit about some of the stuff that you did before you got to Prince? Because obviously you were all introduced to us in 1986, all of the people here.
Sure.
But what kind of stuff did you do before you got to Prince?
Well, I mean, I'd had a career in music for well over 10, close to 15 years before I ever met Prince or even heard the name Prince. My family, I was actually born in Milwaukee. I moved around a little bit with my family, but we moved to Pittsburgh when I was in junior high school. So I went to high school and music school in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So that's where my career began. So from the late early 70s up and through the early 80s, my entire career was based in Pittsburgh. Now I was with several bands, jazz bands. I had well, for those people who know my section mate, Matt Bliston, better known as Atlanta Bliss on trumpet.
Mm-hmm.
We had gone to music. He was from Pittsburgh. We had gone to music school together. So we had been playing off and on in bands for over 10 years before we hooked up with Prince. We had a band together in the late 70s called Taking Names. It was a Pittsburgh. We were a bar band. We were a hard funk jazz band. We were all of that. We were a cover band. The late 70s, man, was like a wonderful time to be like an R&B funk cover band, because you had Earth, Wind and Fire at their best. You had P-Funk just hitting it hard. You had Stevie Wonder at the best. You had Kool and the Gang. Pretty Ladies Night, Kool and the Gang. My band, we called ourselves Taking Names because we
Right.
kicked ass and took names. Now we also did a lot of original material, and that more or less was more instrumental stuff
Okay.
that we did. So we had that for a few years, and then I was with a traditional blues and R&B band that was based in Pittsburgh with a singer named Billy Price, who was just an absolute phenomenal blues and R&B singer. And we traveled all up and down the East Coast. We're talking about the late 70s, early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
We used to play gigs with Dr. John. We used to play gigs with Muddy Waters. We played gigs with Stevie Ray Vaughan, guys like that, the Thunderbirds. I mean, these were just like some of the hippest blues and R&B, traditional R&B
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was a bar band musician for years and years. I mean, I would say from around mid 70s to like 1982, 83, with the bands I was in, I would average 275 gigs a year. I mean, literally,
Wow.
we're working with our bands and we're on the road
Yeah.
playing one-nighters. And after I'd done that for a long period of time, I was said, I'm kind of done with this, just being a bar band, because it's you got great bands playing music, but you're making shit money.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, back in those days, we come home with 200, 250 bucks in our pocket after a week. you
Oh,
know. And yeah,
wow.
now, I mean, obviously, $250 back in the late '70s is a little better than what it
True,
would
that
be now.
actually.
But we're not, we're still living hand to mouth.
Yeah.
At the end of the month, if I got $50 in my bank account, I'm like, oh, cool, I got $50 in my bank account. Let's, what happens next month? My buddy Matt Bliss in Atlanta Bliss, he had moved to Atlanta to just try to get a change of scenery.
Mhm.
And I went down there to hang with him because I was ready to get out of Pittsburgh because there was really nothing more for me to do in Pittsburgh. And meanwhile, my brother, Alan, who most of the diehard Prince fans know who
Right.
he is, he had been working with Prince for over a year by then. So
Oh, okay.
when Prince was deciding to put this new group called The Family together, Prince had mentioned to my brother that he was interested in maybe using the saxophone player in this group, which was the first time apparently that he had thought about using a horn of any
Yeah.
kind.
An actual
So
horn, because up to that
yeah, and
point
that,
he
right,
would
yeah.
imitate it on a keyboard. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that was basically his thing, and what he was known
Yeah.
for is that with keyboards he was kind of just implying what maybe a traditional horn section would have
Right.
previously done. So Alan mentioned to Prince as well. I just happen to know somebody who plays the horn, so obviously that was the hookup.
And
Yeah.
did you bring Atlanta in, or was that your idea, or?
Eventually, yeah, because for the first year or so, it was just about the family. And
Okay.
I was starting to do some recording with Prince for his own music, but basically, what I was there for primarily was just to be a part of this group, the family. And of course, we had the album that came out and a hit single with "Screams of Passion."
Hmm.
And then Paul, as everyone knows, decided to leave the family,
Leave the family.
leave
Yes.
the family. So I was fortunate at that point that Prince just decided, well, at that point he was considering expanding and revamping his own band.
Right.
So that's when he asked me, well, why don't you come join us? And at that point, then he asked me, maybe we should like do a section and add a trumpet. Do you happen to know a good trumpet player? And I said, gee, I just happen to know a tremendous trumpet player. So
Okay.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's interesting because the first time I like remember like, hey, who's that guy? Oh, that's Eric Leeds. Oh, okay. Was,
Mm-hmm.
the Sign of the Times movie. And
Oh,
then
okay. Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
interesting kind of going back, and I'm just like, oh, he was actually in the Mountains video too. So he was doing
Mm-hmm.
stuff on that album. And then I found out about the family. So I was
Got it.
late. Like I had to go backwards to find where
Right.
you
No,
started.
no, no. Yeah, I get it. There's a lot of cats like that I've gotten into. Yeah, and this is the thing. I mean, up until even in the 2000s, some young kid who's just like maybe 15 or 16 years old would come to me and want to ask about it. And they're just getting into Prince for what he's doing then.
Mm-hmm.
And they know, I only know about you because then I got into Prince and then I went back years because, a kid is like 15 years old getting into Prince in the 2000s. He was barely born
Yeah, exactly.
when we were doing Around the World in a Day and Parade and all that stuff. So,
Exactly.
it speaks to the timelessness of Prince's music, just like you got 10-year-old, 15-year-old kids now that are into the Beatles.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
I was actually big into the Beatles and Queen, and then I found Prince, and then
Mm-hmm.
Prince rocked my world, and I'm like, Beatles who?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, quick question about that, because there was, you started working with Prince, more and more, and you kind of
Mm-hmm.
said that like he would say, hey, I want a section here or whatever. But how was the creative process there? Was it like, here's what I want it to sound like, and he would play it on the keyboard? Or would he say, Eric, what do you think should go here?
It was a combination of all of that. I think when we first started working with him, myself and then with Matt on trumpet, Prince was a little, it was new to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously the primary difference and what turned into one of the primary benefits for me is obviously that he didn't play the horns.
Right.
So whatever idea that he had to actually for the first time realize it through somebody else rather than
Yeah.
just being able to pick up the bass or the guitar or sit behind the keys or even play drums himself. So at first he was a little bit more, I think, wanting to know what we could come up with since he didn't have quite the experience yet, as I think he gained a little more comfort with the idea of being able to realize what could be done to the horns. Because I mean, there was sometimes something that he would throw at an idea that idiomatically would not work on a horn.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just some kind of idea that they said, well, Prince, that isn't something a horn can really do. So let us take that idea and make it work on horns.
Wow.
So then,
Okay.
as he started to learn and get more experience and comfort and a little just more experience in knowing, okay, maybe that won't work, then he started to come up with more specific ideas. But in any given situation, it could go a bunch of different ways. There were circumstances, particularly when we were putting stuff together for the live shows,
Okay.
because oftentimes there were songs that older songs of his that we would be doing on the gigs that, of course, never had horns on them when they were originally recorded years before. So sometimes he would then say to me, he said, well, why don't you try to put a horn arrangement or something to add to this song, which I would do sometimes. Other times he might know exactly what he wanted to do, and he would just either, like say, play it on the keys, or he just hum it to us,
Yeah.
sing us the notes, and we say okay, and then basically then Matt and I would quickly harmonize it if we needed to, throw some harmonies or a counter line or something. There were some times when he had a specific idea already in what he wanted. So then it was just, okay, this is what I need you guys to do. So
Hmm.
here it is, and then we would take it from there. But even then, we were free to, throw something out. Like I say, okay, Prince, that line might work a little better if we change this note, or if we're going to throw this
Right. If we do it
harmony
like
in,
this, right.
yeah, or split the thing there or whatever. In which case, sometimes he would say, oh, okay, cool, do that. Then he might come back with and say, well, if you're going to do this, then let's change that. And
Hmm.
then it goes back and forth. And at the end of the song, I don't know if either one of us could tell you who was really responsible for what. Now, other times he would just give me a couple songs and say, go in the studio and write an arrangement for these. And he might not even be at the studio while we're doing that. He would just leave, call me or to say, hey, I need you and Bliston to go in. Susan Rogers, who was usually our recording engineer around that time, she'll know what I need you to do, where I need you to do it. Like I need a saxophone solo here. She'll
Yeah.
be able to tell you where it goes. Where or he would just say, hey, do something on the first verse, leave the chorus alone. Second verse, do something different. When it comes to the second chorus, then try to do something, and just leave it to us to come up with whatever we wanted.
That's
So
pretty cool. I mean, and
yeah.
honestly, if you think about it, he started off with you and Atlanta Bliss and then went to the Hornheads, which was
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah,
5 people. And then, when at the tail end of his career, he had like a 9 or 10 person horn section that would be out
right,
on the
yeah, yeah,
stage dancing and doing all kinds of craziness.
exactly, yeah,
So he even
yeah.
evolved in his
Oh
implementation
sure,
of that, definitely.
absolutely.
Here's a question that I have, and it might be a funny one. Prince was always kind of big when he was ever on stage. He would push Sheila off so he could play drums for a second, or he would grab the guitar, he might grab the bass.
Right.
He'd go to the keyboard and do it.
Exactly.
Was there ever a moment where he was like, I need you to show me how to play these notes so I can take your saxon and I can play it, or anything like that?
No, he never did. Never came near the horn. No,
Okay.
no. There was actually someone had told me, and I forget who, that they thought that Prince had actually messed around trying to play a saxophone maybe years and years, when he was younger or whatever, and that went nowhere apparently or whatever. I don't know if it's even true. It's just something that someone told me.
That's fair.
I can honestly say that I don't recall any moment where he ever expressed any interest in the instrument itself, as if to say, gee, how do you guys do that? Or what's that like playing that horn or an instrument? It was just like, okay, you guys play the horns, you do what you do.
That makes sense. And real quick, it sounds like Atlanta Bliss came kind of with his name. He's from Atlanta. His last name is Bliston. He was already Atlanta Bliss, or did Prince give him that
No,
name?
that was Prince's name. Because like I say, Matt grew up in Pittsburgh. I mean, he's really a Pittsburgh guy. We just decided to move to Atlanta just because we wanted to go someplace warmer, and try to just get into something else. I think Prince gave him that name in order to distinguish him from Matt Fink, since we now had two guys named Matt in the band. So it was easier for him to just like give him, I'm going to refer to this guy, Matt. We already got a Matt. Let's give him a name. You're living in Atlanta. Take the name Bliston, cut off the last few letters of his name, Bliss. Hey, you're Atlanta Bliss. And that was that.
So, but of course, you were just always just Eric Leeds. So, was it just because there wasn't another Eric? Did he ever try to give you a name?
Oh, there were lots of names he had for. There were lots of names he had for me on a lot of days. But no, we not usable names. But no, it never went. No, never went beyond that.
Okay, around that time when you were working with Prince, you actually were involved with a lot of different projects with him. Be it the Family, be it the Revolution, the Love Sexy Band, Madhouse, all these different things that you were doing. Do you have a favorite project, big projects? I know you came back and you did smaller gigs and stuff here and there, but like, do you have a favorite of the big projects that you did with Prince?
Not really.
No.
This is something that a lot of the diehard fans may know about me, but may find interesting, or might even just kind of puzzle them. I have never been, and am not today, a fan of Prince's music, particularly.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's stuff of his that I like. But when I got involved with Prince, it was not because I had any particular interest to get involved with Prince. I needed a gig.
Right.
And it was really, and I had no expectations or illusions about what it was going to become. My involvement with Prince was actually in the beginning somewhat incremental, because I was brought in to play a recording session for this group that he was putting together called The Family. And while he had heard a recording of me that Alan had played for him that at least enthused him enough to say, I like the way he plays, I'll invite him to come into the session, we'll do that. I had already been told that if this project, The Family, was going to actually turn into something, that the record wasn't going to even be released for like almost another year.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I'm thinking, well, this is a rock star, and rock stars, including Prince, they have the patience and the of a mosquito, So what Prince is into on Monday doesn't necessarily mean that he's into that on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Right.
So I'm thinking, this was, I think, July of '84 when I started working with him and on recording the stuff that came out on the Family album. That album wasn't released until the spring of '85. Oh. So in '84, I'm thinking, well, this album may never see the light of day. So he could lose interest in this in several months. Purple Rain was just coming out.
Yeah.
So needless to say, he had bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I did the initial sessions with him, and then I went home to Atlanta, and I didn't see him again for months after that. So it was basically, we had a lot of fun in that first session, and I enjoyed the experience of working with him, and more importantly, he enjoyed the experience of working with me. I mean, that was obviously more important. And like I say, there's, no matter what he might have thought of me before we got together, there's no inevitability that once you get in a room with somebody that it really works. Right. I mean, I in my career, that I've had the opportunity to work with absolutely fabulous musicians, but sometimes just stylistically, so like I could say, this guy's an absolutely fabulous drummer or keyboard player, but he's just not stylistically what I'm looking for, what I need in my music right now. Right. So, we're all used to that. So, I mean, if Prince, after the initial session, if Prince had said to me, he said, Eric, thank you for coming in. I really appreciate what you're doing. I'm just not sure this is what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. Then my thing is, hey, man, thank you for the opportunity. Good luck. See you. Get on a plane. I'll go to Atlanta, and I'll something to, I had a day with Prince. All right, cool. Yeah. Fortunately, we both enjoyed the experience, and it just moved on from there. But the point was, at that point, I had extremely little familiarity with any of Prince's music. Right. So it wasn't like I was coming into this like, oh my God, I love this guy's music. This is going to be the greatest thing in the world. It was It's like, okay, this is who this guy is. And my respect for him was really grew out of the relation of working with him. Right. So, yeah.
No, that makes sense. I mean, although from a listener standpoint, it does seem like some of his projects obviously lend more to your particular kind of more jazzy sound than others do. Like Madhouse was definitely more the Eric Leeds sound than say, the Love Sexy stuff where it was like more the rock pop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Madhouse was, and once again, it's something that I've always had some ambivalence about, because first of all, it was a project that he created for me
Hmm.
ostensibly. Although I think even if I had not been involved with him in any manner at that point in his career, I think it's something that he would probably have done. He was interested in doing something like that. Whether he did it because I was there, that was something only he could have answered.
Yeah.
But basically, I mean, literally, he just called me one day. We had come off the road from the parade gigs. This was in the fall of '86, and it's when he had already told some of us in the band that he was going to be revamping the band for next year. So all of us are sitting there and said, well, are we going to have a gig next year or whatever? So he basically called me and said, do you want to play some jazz? And I didn't. So what the hell do you mean by that? He said, well, come on over. And he already had a lot of this music on from the first Madhouse album already in his mind. I think he already has some tracks done.
Okay.
So basically, he said, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to do an instrumental album where you will ostensibly be, quote unquote, the leader of the band. Although we knew that, that really wasn't the case.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah. But on the one hand, I'm thinking, well, cool, because I mean, this wasn't something that he had done for any other member of his band. He had never, I was the only guy he'd ever come say, hey, I'm going to do an album, and you're the guy.
Right.
So on the one hand, when a musician of his caliber comes to you and says, hey, this is what I want to do, just from the respect and admiration you have, it's a very high compliment to begin with. The other point is I got a piece of this. So and it's also good for my career because it's something that's going to give me a visibility, perhaps,
Yeah.
that I can then leverage for wherever I'm going to go with my career next.
Yeah.
And we did that first album in 3 days. I mean, literally from
Wow.
beginning
Okay.
to end, just back, just in it. And it was literally just him and I working together for 3 days. The unfortunate reality is it's an album I've never particularly cared much about. I mean, and I know that there are people that love that album, and I'm fine. I'm fine, and back in the day I was, I'm glad you are, because I have a piece of this. Please buy this album, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but musically, I mean, there's some stuff on it I like, but overall it was never something that I really had that much interest in, other than the fact that, okay, this is going to be something that is something that I'm still going to be involved in.
Yeah.
We did a second album.
Yeah, 16.
There's some stuff on that I really don't like, but most of that album I do like.
Okay.
But it's not music that was stuff I did a long time ago. So it's pretty much out of my mind. There are people that still come up to me wanting to hear Madhouse, and I have to disappoint them and say, I don't do that anymore. The main benefit of that for me was that we were in the process of what was going to be a third Madhouse album.
Mm-hmm.
We actually had recorded a third Madhouse album, and it was never released because both Prince and I decided we didn't want it out.
Okay.
Yeah, after a few months, I realized that he was starting to have some second thoughts about what was going to be the third album. I already was also. He then came to me and said, let's start over on the third Madhouse album. And I said, cool, let's do that. The only thing was, in this particular instance, he had just been given the Batman project.
Yeah.
They had just come to him and said, we want you to contribute music to the first Batman album. And they needed it like tomorrow. They needed the music really quick.
Yeah.
So he was off doing that. So for the first time, he actually took what Madhouse and just completely gave it to me.
Oh,
And said,
wow.
okay, you got it. What he did is he gave me rough mixes of close to 40 different pieces of music from the vault.
Oh, wow.
And basically just gave me this on analog cassettes. I still have the analog cassettes that he gave me. None of the songs had names on them, or very few of them did. Some of them were actually outtakes from some songs that we had done from the sessions from the second Madhouse album, but there was a bunch of other stuff. A lot of it was just work product of his, that tracks that he had never completed or really done anything with.
Right.
And he gave them to me and he said, start by listening to all of this stuff. If there's anything you like, go with it, mess with it, do whatever you want with it. And I think maybe 4 or 5 of the songs were things that I ended up doing things with, and I radically, I was taking stuff that he did off and
Right.
replacing it with different things and making different things out of the songs. Anyway, that became what would have been another attempt at a third Madhouse album. When I finished that, he listened to it and he said, I really, really love it. The only thing is, it doesn't sound like Madhouse to me any longer.
Mm.
So then, and I was, that was the other shoe that I was waiting, because of like, Eric, I love it, but, and I said, okay, here we go. Um, you know, he said, it doesn't sound like Madhouse. And I told him, I said, well, why would it? Because, Madhouse was still basically Prince. I mean, it was
Right.
basically, he was making all of the production and conceptual creative decisions on that. This was a situation where, although almost all of the music on this album started with Prince, I was just screwing around with it and just beating the shit out of it, making it whatever I could come out of it.
Yeah.
Fortunately, what he then said is, I want to sign you to a record deal. Let's put this album out under your name. So that became my first album, which was called Time Squared.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Very
So,
cool.
yeah.
Okay.
So there was nothing more wonderful that Prince could have ever done for me than that. Then said, here, I want to. Basically, what he said is, screw Madhouse.
Yeah.
Let's put that aside. I want to take the handcuffs off you and let you do what you're going to do.
Well, and like you said earlier, like that's probably the highest compliment that he could have done.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because the irony is that when I first met Prince, like I said, having no real expectation or illusions about where the relationship might go. And I mean, this was long before it would even have occurred to me that I could ever be a part of his band. Because ostensibly it was just, okay, I'm going to be in this group, the Family. For all I knew, that was all it was ever going to be. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what's the best case scenario that I could get out of this for my career? I said, well, here's a guy that has a reputation, obviously, a pop superstar.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe my involvement with him can give me the visibility that one day down the line I can leverage to enable me to have the opportunity to make my own music, which is basically what my primary goal as a musician is always to be. 6 years later, that's what happened. The irony was that it was Prince himself that came to me with that opportunity. And it really came to fruition for me most significantly when it came time to do my second album, which was called Things Left Unsaid. And when Prince and I sat down to just kind of discuss what, first of all, I had to get the okay from him for him to really pick up the option on the contract that I had with Paisley Park Records to basically enable me to go and do another album. And we talked for a while, and he asked me, well, what do you want to, on the next album? And I said, well, I already have a working band that I've been doing some gigs with, so maybe I would start with that. But I said, if we're really, I have the benefit this time of, Paisley Park Records was distributed through Warner Brothers, of course. So I had the benefit of being able now to have the resources of the A&R department at Warner Brothers, their jazz A&R department.
Yeah.
So basically, I went to them and said, okay, let's do this. And Prince laughed and he said, oh, you want to get involved with record company people? And I said, well, as long as you have my back, then I can, I have the rare ability to be able to take advantage of what they can offer. But if I'm the one that still has the final say so, then we're cool, right? And he said, yeah, absolutely. So I went and did that. And that second album, mine, Things Left Unsaid, is probably the one that's more me than anything that I, had done up until that point. And most of that album I did in New York.
All right, that was only part one, and we have so much more to talk about with Eric Leeds. If you like that, don't forget to hit the like button, and don't forget to share how much fun we're having with everybody else. Otherwise, may you live to see the dawn. See you in part two.